What's poppin'? It's your boy Moses, aka Nomo, chilling right here inside the Lit Out It podcast. Got a very special guest in the building. I got Mr.
Brian. You can call me Lonely as well.
Lonely Brian. But your Instagram is Bliss, right?
Yeah, I'm at Free Bliss 1.
Free Bliss 1, dog. I've definitely seen some podcasts that you have, and you have a crazy story. So I wanted to first of all say thank you pulling up to the podcast, for being able to share your story with us, but also welcome to Southgate. The only time fools pull up to Southgate is to be on the Lit Out It podcast.
This will be my second time. I mean, I've been through in traffic, but actually, pulling up at a red light and stopping, it'll be my second time.
Okay, so welcome to Southgate, my boy.
Thank you, man.
You did a lot of time in prison as starting off as a young man. So I want to just straight get into it, dog. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
So I'm from the San Fernando Valley. As a child, I traveled around a lot. I've lived in, Silmar, San Fernando, North Hills, Pacoima. I'm based in Sun Valley. That's the city that I represented, and I do to this day. But yeah, that's been my primary residence. It is now. But, for those 29 years, it was all up north.
Right.
Yeah, I was on the other side of the grapevine for the entire time.
I want to get into like the childhood, because eventually, right, you ended up in prison. How was your early childhood, and what do you think kind of like led you into the lifestyle that got you in trouble?
People always say you're a product of your environment. I was a product of my choices. I ended up living a life that I didn't necessarily have to live. I made a lot of decisions that I felt I needed to make at the time. So, I grew up to a mother and a father that were struggling with heroin addiction. My father actually died in his heroin addiction the week of my trial.
Damn.
But, with my mother, growing up struggling from addiction, I don't understand the nature of addiction. All I know is that my mom and my dad are not around. I'm missing like the necessities that a child needs in life, like love and attention and affection.
Right.
So I'm taking this personally. And as a young child, that punches on the emotions right there. That deflates your spirit. And it also started to build up a lot of anger and resentment inside of me. And I spent a lot of years nurturing that. So, ultimately, when I was of age and able to hit the streets, I hit the streets. I was looking for attention. I was looking for love. I was looking for acceptance. And gangs filled every single need, every single void I ever had. I hated who I was. I hated Brian James. He was a piece of shit whose own mom and dad didn't want him. This is what I believe. It wasn't the reality,
right,
but this is what I believe. So, when I get to join the gang, okay, granted, I get my ass whooped, but when I get picked up off the ground, I'm not Brian James no more. Now I'm lonely. I'm from a neighborhood. I get to put in work and belong to something, get pats on the back, all the stuff that I was starving for. So I dove head first into every aspect of that life. And then the drugs came along with it, coming out of these broken homes, like every homie, because you don't end up on the streets. You don't end up in prison because everything is well at home. We all suffer our own traumas. The strongest homies I know have suffered the greatest traumas in their life. So you dive in head first to all that, and it feels good. And the drugs, the feelings, the beat up emotions coming from childhood, they're still there because they've never been addressed. The drugs soothe them.
Yeah.
So I was with it all.
When they gave you the name Lonely, how'd you get that name?
So it actually came from a homegirl, and I was always in juvenile hall. Always in juvenile hall. It was it was always letters from me and the phone calls. So, it was Lonely Boy, but once I hit to the prison, I had to cut the boy.
Tell me the first time you got in trouble. What got you into a juvenile hall the first time?
I stole an LL Cool J tape from Target.
Okay.
So I owe LL Cool J. I owe you $7.99. That's one of my favorite rappers too. But yeah, that was the first time. When I say I lived a life that I didn't, necessarily need to live, I didn't need to steal that. I can't identify, why I chose to do that in that moment. But I stole it, and I got arrested, and I didn't give a fuck.
Growing up too, that reminds me like a lot of homies will go to a liquor store and their parents wouldn't give them money. But anytime I left the house, my mom would give me $10, $15, $20. So they would always steal candy from the liquor store. And to me, it felt wrong, like, you know, because my dad's a street vendor, so stealing from someone's business always felt wrong. I used to always pay for my shit, and then that also always gave me money for drugs too, right? My mom always used the mom. I was a young kid using the money my mom would give me to buy like weed and shit, right? But me too. Like I feel like the big moment when I decided to really go full into like my troubled youth was when I stole some shoes from warehouse shoe sale. I went in there with some dirty shoes, traded them out for some new Jordans, and walked out. And then they got me, right? And that kind of led me down this path of like, you know, crime. You know, like oh, that wasn't that bad. The other cops come and get me, but my mom got me out, so I'm good. Like nothing happened. You know, why do you think kids like to steal shit?
I mean, I think it comes with an adrenaline rush. You know, I think it's more the adrenaline rush than the actual, you know,
Item.
getting the item. And you know, there's a thing, you know, there's even an aspect of getting caught that, you know, in my later years, you know, when I was sitting in the cells thinking about my life, saying a part of me had zero problem with getting in trouble because I knew when I got out, there was a thing called fresh out of jail worship. That's what I called it. You know, I used to get out of camp or juvenile hall at that time from these arrests, and it's like, you know, they throw the party and say, oh, the homie Lonely got out, or oh, you're lonely, you just got out.
Yeah.
For a kid like me whose self-esteem was in the gutter, you know, whose sense of value was in the gutter, to have someone tell me that, put me on top of the world. It was only momentarily, but I fed off that.
That's crazy because that makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, when I got out of jail the first and second time, like same thing. Like, oh, this fool's home, he's out. Like, oh, you look like, and then, you know, you're in jail, you're getting in shape. Like, oh, you lost weight, you're looking good, fool, this and that. Like all the fucking praise you get from the homies, and oh, you didn't snitch, like good shit. Like you're a big dog now, que sabe que, you know. But I think like it's crazy how like I feel like stealing small items like that is like a gateway drug to crime. You know, like just how the way weed is, because a lot of fools say that weed's not a gateway drug, and I think it is. You know what I mean? So you got out of juvenile hall. How long were you in there for?
I mean, I was in and out of juvenile hall. I done like camp terms. I done 90-day observations in CYA. But on the actual case that I got arrested, I had been in juvenile hall for 4 months prior to that. I had got out on a Thursday, and I was back on a murder conviction Monday morning.
God damn, dog.
I know.
Now I want to walk through the process as far as mentally, like what happened that day, why did you do it, type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But like when you got out on Thursday, you were like completely fine with going back in?
Yeah. You know, I hear it's crazy. The phrase that we used to use back then in the 90s is still around. I'm not done yet. I was still like, you know, all those things I just described, that kid that was looking for all that, like he was still there. You know, he lived inside of me well into my adulthood. So unless that stuff is dealt with, what's going to change?
Right.
So yeah, I literally, and you know, it's heartbreaking for me. It's a lot of this is what drives me, because my grandparents drove me home. These are the loves of my life. They're not with me anymore. They are, but they're not. I could feel their hands on my back pushing me every day. That's what drives me every day. But
Dope.
I remember them saying, Brian, stay home for the night. They just asked for a night, you know? As soon as we got home, threw on my Ben Davis, a fresh white Stafford t-shirt, went in the bathroom, one clipped my hair, and went down the street, you know, grabbed the snub nose out of the bush, because I don't bring it past my grandmother's door. You know, I was a good guy like that. You know?
Respectful, very respectful.
Yeah, I was a good gang member, you know? And like all good gang members, I slept on my grandma's couch, you know?
Yeah.
And I hit the streets. Yeah, immediately right back. Fresh out of jail worship, man. I was chasing it. I needed that fix. I hadn't had it in a while.
What was the situation at the party? It was just supposed to be homies or what?
So, ironically, it was a party to celebrate my release. You know, and we went in there with every intention of not having conflict. I say that, which is kind of like, I don't know, it could be both sides. Because if you're a gang member and you're strapped and you're running around, you're drinking, you're partying, like, come on, you're looking for conflict. There's no way around it. You know, that we thrived on conflict. So we were back there, and you know, there was a little table where shots and drinks were getting passed out, and you know, some words were exchanged and a conflict took place. It was physical, but it was brief. It was about 3 seconds. I don't want to get into detail, but ultimately the party My crowd, my homies, we moved outside. They moved outside. I jumped in the car and I was leaving. I was down the street. I had backed all the way down the street. Me, my co-defendant, and another one of my homeboys. We backed all the way down the street. And as we're driving away, we seen a big fight take place. Second nature, first nature, really at this point. You hit the gas, you reach under the seat. You grab what you grab and you go and you hit the scene. And as I got there, a big fight took place. Anybody that knows from the 90s knows. If you don't, you can YouTube it. They're insane. The party in the 90s. Guns come out, knives come out. A good man ended up dead. At the time, I called it putting in work. I use language like that to shield myself from the reality that a mother is closing the casket on her son, that I took another guy's life for no other reason than he lives in a different place than me or a minor conflict because I didn't have the tools to de-escalate it. I had to pull out a weapon and lay somebody down. I'm really ashamed of that today. I'm ashamed of the fact that I spent a lot of years really proud of that as a badge of honor. So yeah, that's what drove me. And what drove me to actually do it is the fact that, like I said, it was second nature. I was a gang member and I was a good fucking gang member,
What do you mean by that?
The word back then was ranked out. I never ranked out. I was on the block every day.
You never shied away from a fight?
Never on the streets, never in prison, never in the county, never in juvenile hall, YA camp. I'm not the toughest guy in the world by any stretch. I've had my clocked cleaned. You know what I mean? There's guys way, way tougher than me, but I'm the guy that won't quit. I'm the guy that will be there and be strong and be loyal, to the best of my ability.
Were you, you're white, right?
I'm white, yeah.
And you were from a Mexican hood?
Yeah. And a Sureño in prison.
How do you think, is it just because all your homies were Mexican? You're like the white boy in the gang, or what?
The neighborhood that I'm from, there were a few white boys at the time. Probably the ratio was probably bigger than a lot of gangs, although it was greater Mexican at the time. In prison, and in home, my family, my stepdad, my stepbrothers, my brother and my sister are half Mexican. So it's my culture, it's my love. It's always been, it's my comfort zone,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not one of those. There's a lot of white boys like, no, my great grandma was Mexican, and you know what I mean, and yeah, no, yeah.
Okay. So that kind of like flipped your world upside down. How old were you at this time?
I was 16.
Damn. And how did you end up getting caught? Right there on the spot, you got caught?
No, so we fled the scene and we left, and the next morning, I had just got out. So my grandparents only come to church with us. So, I went to church with them in the morning, and I remember reading the newspaper on the way back from church. I was looking in the metro section, seeing if somebody died. I couldn't find anything. Then I got the phone call. The homeboy said they got everybody in the police station right now. I said, fuck. So we're in the car, and I'm telling my grandparents and my mom, like, something happened last night. I'm not getting into detail, but as soon as we turn the car to our street, it's lined with cops.
It happened on your street?
No, but they knew who I was.
Oh, they're looking for you.
It's really easy to say a white boy with 3 dots on his eyes and a White Sox beanie. That was the description that was out. Plus, be blunt, I had 2 homeboys that straight snitched on me.
Damn.
So that was a direct link to me.
Yeah.
So
you were like done for before you knew it.
Yeah. I was done for before I knew it. Yeah. But I knew it pretty early.
Yeah.
I knew pretty early.
Did the family members ever try like to reach out for you? Like, did you ever get like closure with that?
Here's the thing. Nobody in the family, I've scoured doc because I've sought to do what I can to make amends or make some kind of peace with this poor family who I've drugged through this fucking nightmare. There's nothing. I can't find a phone number. I can't find nothing. When you go to parole board like I did, they send out detailed communications to the family member saying, hey, this guy's going up for parole. There's the potential that he could be coming home. If you want to attend his hearing or submit any kind of documentation, now's the time. Because it looks like he might go home. He's been putting in work, positive work.
Right.
And nothing. But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna say, I've never said this before. And when I made a shift in my life and I elevated my thinking to try to put good in this world instead of take from it, I made a promise to myself that the first paycheck that I ever get when I get out, I'm gonna dedicate it to the college and the department that the victim of my case went to. It was CSUN, which is not far from where I live. So my first paycheck, that's all I had to give to this guy. And I don't say that to toot my own horn because I definitely don't deserve any of that. All I deserve is to put in work for the rest of my life to try to do everything to represent this guy and our story that is going to be linked for better or worse together for the rest of our lives.
Do you have like this mental dialogue that you go through, like what you would say if you were to find some of his family?
I've written them letters.
Okay. What do the letters say?
There's no words. I just apologize. I tell them like, I don't even feel like it's fair that I'm the one that gets to write you while your son's not here. Like, they're brutal. I came to the completion of 2 letters in total. I wrote one directly to my victim, which probably took about 150 drafts, realistically. And then his family, which probably about the same, took about 3 years to come to one to where I said, maybe I could live with this at least for now. And I presented it to the parole board. So yeah, I have. I've given a lot of thought. The majority of my life has been spent in a box. Like, I wasn't in like a level 2 or I was a level 3 in the last 2 years of my sentence, but I'm from the 90s where the lockdowns were like 2 years, and you're forced to really become introspective or pick up a book or become a fucking bum and watch TV all day. I chose the first part.
Right after that happened, like, were you upset at your homies for snitching? Like, how did that happen? Like,
yeah, I remember walking to the police station. They had that long brown bench with all the handcuffs on it. Yeah. There was like 6 of my homies on the bench handcuffed, and I remember I sat down. I said, "Look, if everybody just shuts the fuck up, we'll all make it home today." And this detective, he leans around the corner. He goes, "If you listen to Lonely, you all are going to go down the same road as Lonely, And then they took me to the holding tank, and, they do what they do.
Damn. Did you go to trial?
I went all the way to trial. I went all the way to the box. Yeah. Ultimately, 2nd-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon and a great bodily injury as well.
Damn. When you go to trial, like, it's either you win or you get the full sentence, right?
Yeah, well,
because they give you options to take a plea deal, right?
Yeah, the deal. I went with my co-defendant, and they said if one of you guys take a 15 to life, the other one will give you 12 with 80%. I said, "Dog, take the 15. I'll take care of you. But he wasn't taking it. It wasn't happening. I had to take my shot. But he definitely wasn't going to take it because life meant life. I don't care if it's 1 day to life. You're not going home. At least at that point.
So what did you get sentenced to?
The ultimate sentence was 20 to life. Yeah, 20 to life.
Damn.
Yeah.
But you said if you get life, you're not coming out. So you obviously you're here. You came out.
Yeah. So the law has changed. SB 260. Shout out to anti-recidivism, Scott Budnick, Elizabeth Calvin, all these great people that have put in so much work to help. There's tons of juvenile lifers like me out here right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Walk me through like your mental state, like maybe the first week, the first day inside. How was it?
Terrifying. If anybody tells you otherwise, they're a damn liar. Like, or they were in like a soft ass place. I went into Salinas Valley. It was Sea Yard. It had just opened. The buses come in, New Folsom, Pelican Bay, High Desert. Sick. I remember my first chow sitting down. There was a dude, it was one of the homies. Like, this fool's fists were bigger than my whole head. I was like, damn, But I'll tell you what, from the homies, the introduction was amazing. I was given books. It was a tough introduction because it's a tough world. You don't expect something soft, but I was given books. I was taught to educate myself. I was taught to exercise to keep my body in tip-top shape. I was taught to stay away from drugs that will take over my self-will. I learned really good lessons from really good men in there.
The remorse that you feel for the victim or the person, like, did that have to come over time, or were you like right away you knew you did something bad?
No way. It's something that I'm really ashamed of today, that I wore that as a badge of honor. People, what he busted for? I'm busted for murder, homie, the ultimate pledge of allegiance to my neighborhood. Sick. I look at that today as punk ass kid right there. That's so immature right there. That's so immature, And I even get angry at myself when I think back at that. But yeah, I wore it as a badge of honor for way too long. Way too long.
Do you feel like, So maybe obviously if you wouldn't have gone that night, maybe you probably would have got locked up for something else because you're already part of that lifestyle. But like, do you feel like when you're at that age, you're just dying to go outside and maybe you could have avoided the whole situation?
I started doing meth just so I wouldn't sleep, so I wouldn't have to go in, so I could stay outside. You know, we do 9 days, you know, and 9 days of, you know, not just hanging out, you know, in the meth house on the corner, you know, in this writing on the tablet or something, like out there in the streets running around all crazy. So no, if it didn't happen that night, it would have happened. That's the path I was on. I was really messed up, man. And I'm grateful that I went to prison for that long. I'm grateful this world kicked me out of the world for that long, because I was going to continue causing so much wreckage within my home, to my family, to the community. I'm thankful I went to prison.
So you feel like the prison system works?
Definitely not. The prison system sucks. CDCR is garbage.
In what way? What do you think?
They're not interested in our rehabilitation. I'm talking about the system. The only good part, like when I talk about the education that I got, the man that I am today, I learned from prisoners, from convicts, great men in Pelican Bay SHU, Corcoran SHU, now gratefully out on the main line. Really, really smart men who just haven't gotten their second chance, who CDCR still has buried. But the only R in CDCR, they call it rehabilitation. The only thing they do is reach out with their key and they turn a lock. We do the rest. We do the rest. Emotional intelligence, Criminal Gang Members Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. I learned all that from convicts.
So you guys like create your own groups inside?
Yeah, and run them, facilitate them, create structure, everything. Brilliant human beings in there.
Damn.
Yeah.
And you said you did most of your time up north.
Yeah, I started in Wasco. I went to Salinas Valley. I went to Tehachapi. I went to SADF. From SADF, I went to Kern Valley. I went back to Corcoran SHU. I got, all up north, everything. Pelican Bay.
In total, how much total time was it?
29 years and, you know, like a month and something like that.
Do you feel like there was like different seasons in your term? Like maybe the first 5 years you were feeling a certain way and then you started to kind of evolve? Like talk to me through the different seasons of your mental state through the 29 years.
I would say every 5 years is like, I've thought about this. One time I even wrote a little, you know, I'm like a journal type of guy. Like I write to figure things out. And every 5 years, the first 5 years was pure education, pure observing. That's how I am anyways. I sit back and I'm really observing. I can really pick up on energy. But yeah, it was a pure education and pure gung-ho, trying to make my name. It's the same ingredients that I used in the street to try to develop this lonely character that I had developed in myself. It was the same thing in prison. And I felt an extra responsibility to the homies because of my ethnicity.
You feel like you really had to prove yourself to be part of the Mexican gang?
This was my head telling me that. You know, honestly, I never felt any pressure from the homies because I think, you know, homies pick up on that energy and they know what's what and who's who, and they knew I was with the business. So I never, you know, you get that like little carrilla. Like I heard every white joke in the world. I still do to this day, but you know, that's why I got comebacks, you know.
Well, I get white boy jokes. I'm not even a white boy. So
I
can only imagine, you know.
I've heard it all. It was funny. I remember when Malibu's Most Wanted came out, I was in the Tehachapi SHU. It was over. I looked at my cellie. I said, this is going to be me for a long time.
Fuck.
But it was love. Like, you know what I mean? It was always love. But yeah, definitely my ethnicity put me in a position to want to like do a little bit extra and show my worth. Because again, I was the same kid. Nothing ever got fixed. I still wanted the attention. I still wanted that pat on the back. I still wanted that huila that said, gracias, fool. That was a good fucking holiday we did right there, you know? Mm-hmm. Still, nothing changed.
So after the first 5 years, what was the next season?
The second 5 years was, okay, now I have the information. And now, you know, I'm getting tapped to, you know, maybe a little more organizational, a little more teaching of information. And I'm feeling a little bit more confident at this point. But I'm still, it's constant trouble. I would say out of the 29, probably 16 of those were spent in the SHU and in the hole. 43 write-ups in total. 24 years caught in prison. It was a dope case and an attempted murder case. Thank God the SB 260 law, the juvenile law, would not allow them to hold me for those additional years. You find me, you grant me parole. It's signed off by the governor. They have to let me go home. So, yeah.
when the state of California elects a different governor, is there talk amongst the prisoners like, oh, if this fool gets hired, I think we're all going to get out, or you guys are not really following the politics too
No,
much?
everything is with a microscope in there.
Okay.
Everything. And the fear was like, I remember like right when I got granted parole, it was like February 1st, 2022, February 3rd, excuse me. I don't know how the hell I forgot that day. That was my parole board day. But from that time, something like 3 weeks later, some dude out in El Monte shot a cop, or it was something, there was a shooting like in a hotel room or something like that. And we're like, and he was a parolee. So your immediate is like, damn, that's all it takes. Remember that, the Poly Class case that triggered the 3 strikes, like within months, 3 strikes came into play. So all it takes is that one incident and the laws retract. Everything goes back, that door shuts, and we're fucking stuck. Because the parole rate from the time that I went in from 95 up until almost like 2010, something like 3 people in total parole, and they were all women. So there was zero hope, zero incentive to want to do anything good.
When you know those stats as far as like not that many people are getting out, do you dwell on that a lot? You have I would imagine you have nothing but time to dwell and think about it, or you're keeping yourself busy and not trying to think about it in there.
So on my 3rd year, I went to what was called a documentation hearing. You go in front of 2 commissioners. Gray Davis was the governor at this time. I sat in front of him, and they says, okay, you're going to the parole board in 20 years. You better have your GED, you better have your high school diploma, you better have a vocation, you better have stayed out of trouble, you better have insight into your crime, you better have no 115s. I said, okay, if I check every single one of those boxes that you say, will I get to go home one day? They laughed at me and they say, your parole officer hasn't even been born yet.
Damn.
At that moment right there, I was like, everything I need to know is on the yard. Everything I need to learn is from the homies.
What's a 115?
Like a disciplinary write-up. A 115 could be a CO being petty because you stole some extra toilet paper, all the way up to you killing someone on the yard.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any
115
write-up.
can range. Yeah.
Damn, dog.
Yeah.
So then what was the next 5 years?
The next 5 years were spent a lot of disappointment in myself. That was an extremely dark period in my time. A lot of disappointment in my life. I know my capabilities. I know my gifts. I know what I'm capable of. I know my drive. And I had realized at that point, like I had ended up just like a lifer in a cell, sticking needles of heroin in my arm, strung out, you know, having my chick run dope for me. I was just in a real miserable place because I had a good foundation growing up from my grandparents. So I had a good understanding that there was more to that world. I was growing tired. I was growing tired. But I didn't know anything else. And there was no turning back for me. There was no tapping out for me. So I just pushed through. You know, that was a miserable 5 years. That was a really tough year for me. And then I ended up into that new season of my life. I ended up going to Kern Valley State Prison, which they called like, it was like a mega level 4 or something, because it was 4 level 4 yards. They ended up making, I think, 3 of them PC yards, 2 of them PC yards now. But at the time, it was fully activated. And I went to that yard and I made the decision to, involve myself in every aspect of what takes place on the yard. And that ultimately got me snatched up by the IGI, by the gang unit, and placed in the SHU. I got validated. They were validating just waves of sureños at the time. A lot of it for some bullshit. Like a dude could have a book on Aztec culture, and they'll use that as a validation. A dude can have a tattoo. I got a what they call a G shield, a warrior shield on my arm. I got that in the 90s, and they used that as a point for validation. And I remember I told the IGI one time, like, why are you doing, all these little homies like that, He says, our goal is to have 50% of you guys telling on the other 50%. And I was like, damn, that was a fucking cold agenda.
What's the SHU like compared to, like, I guess not being in the SHU?
It's hell. It's miserable. It's miserable. You live in a cage. I lived in the same cell for 9 years. I knew every crack. I knew
by yourself?
By myself. At the time in Corcoran SHU, the majority of people were single cell. I'd say like 85%. And again, that's the gang unit playing games, the divide and conquer. But it was sad. It was miserable. But you make the best of it. You know, I read, I worked out, I wrote letters. My only source of information were magazines, the TV, what came through there. It's a really locked away world, and people in there aren't, you know, it's a miserable world.
You said you had 115 write-ups. Did that come?
No. I had 43 write-ups.
My bad.
They're called 115s.
Yeah, you're right. My bad. Got it mixed up. The 43 write-ups, were there like during the season or just sprinkled around?
Sprinkled, yeah. My last write-up was in 2013. My grandmother died in 2011. That's what facilitated the change in my life.
Okay.
That was my greatest fear ever in life happened. Was my grandmother dying. It was the most devastating moment. It stings to this day from 2011. But that was the moment that changed my life. And I had nothing to base change. I didn't remember who the fuck Brian was. I had been lonely way, way too long. Brian was long gone. Brian hadn't even developed because I came lonely in my childhood. I'm barely developing Brian right now. So, yeah.
And then was like your grandma like a big part of your life?
She was everything.
As far as like visiting you, maybe sending you money and stuff like that?
Everything. I wrote her 3 times a week. She wrote me 4 times a week. She visited me every other weekend. She was supposed to be there that weekend. My mom came and I looked. I said, Mom, where's Nan? And I see my mom's, her eye twitched like that. You know your mom. I said, what happened? And she just shook her head. And fuck, bro. I don't wish that on my worst fucking enemy. That's the shit that happens when you go to prison. You know, I know so many dudes in the shoe. Like, I've watched like the strongest men that I know, strong men, come back like with a tear in their eye. It's brutal. It's sad. And then the memorial and the funeral happens and you're not even there. Like, I'm like, this lady dedicated her entire life to me. I'm not even there to say bye to her. That's bullshit right there. You know, that's bullshit. That's the shit that keeps me from returning to that bullshit right there. You know, but that's what you have to look forward to when you go to prison.
When you're in the shoe, you said like you met a lot of good guys. When do you get time to interact with the other people in the shoe?
You're yelling out a door.
Okay.
In the corporate shoe, there are perforated doors. So there's 963 circles in your door. And you can talk through it, you know, and then you go to yard. There's the cages in front of every building are 26 cages. They're dog cages, you know.
Are they wide or they're just vertical short? Like
they're real dog cages. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
And that's your yard time in there outside?
That's your yard time. There's a sink in there. And yeah, we go out there, we work out together, you know, get our mental health in, sit down and chop it up. That's the time to, you know,
interact with somebody else.
Yeah.
How are the COs right there?
Punks. You do find the good ones in there, you know, shout out to the good COs. There are cool ones.
I feel like no one talks about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've met a bunch of COs that are cool people, you know. I mean, I can't say that I know them well because of my moral code does not allow me to cross specific lines. The beliefs I subscribe to, my principles don't allow me to do that. But from what I see, they seem like cool people.
Yeah.
If I see them out here, you know, it's a fist bump and it's all love. But there are some that are just miserable, sorry ass. Like they'll be sitting out there in the yard, all 500 pounds of them, seeing like 2 lifers walk by, just happy, at peace, and joy in life, and just in good shape, educated, and just be mad about it.
Yeah.
Spitting out sunflower seeds. But there are great COs.
So then after like your grandma passed away, like, did that kind of like spark a bigger change in you? Like you wanted to do a little bit better? Like how did you take your grandma's death?
I took it horrible. I sobbed for probably about 30 days straight, if not more. It was brutal. It broke my spirit. It broke everything in me. I remember looking at myself thinking like, you're covered in tattoos. You're strung out on heroin. You're involved in just some wicked stuff, you know? And your grandma's looking down on you and she passed away while you were in that and saw you in that, but still loved you. No matter what, she always saw me as Brian, her baby. I dragged this woman through murder trials, robbery trials. She saw me in that orange jumpsuit in juvenile hall. We used to be in juvenile hall talking about it. Damn, at least I'm not wearing that orange. When I walked down in that orange, fuck, bro, I saw my grandma cry for the second time. That's what you got to look forward to. Be a good gangbanger and go to prison, and that's what happens. I've seen it hundreds of times. I know people who've lost family members. Every time it's brutal. And the cold part was in the shoe when a person would lose their family, they'd always be like, get it to homie Lonely. He's been through it. He'll help you. And I definitely will. And I've walked homies through their grief. But in the process, it reignites all mine again, you know?
It's like picking a scab.
Yeah, but it's okay. I can carry that shit, you know?
Damn.
And it's my duty.
Damn. Well, when you started helping other people, did you feel like, man, like maybe I'm not the lonely I thought I was? Maybe there is a Brian in here. Like you started helping other people.
And here's the crazy part about it. As a child, you know, I was a graffiti artist growing up. That was my early stages. My tagger name was Bliss. Bliss is pure happiness and joy.
Right.
Lonely is a really dark adjective right there. And somebody literally pointed that out to me when I got out, and I was like, dang, that's a good representation of my life, those two periods, like Bliss and Lonely, because Bliss was a tagger and then Lonely ultimately turned into the monster.
Like Bliss, because I used to tag too, and like tagging is fun, dog. Tagging with your homies, like having a good time. You're just a bunch of knuckleheads out there fucking shit up, right? But yeah, then turning to Lonely, like you feel like, you know, sometimes they say be careful what you name your child because it'll kind of take its own personality, you know, the name of it. You know, and do you feel like it was like another 2 seasons, you being Bliss, you being Lonely, right?
Yeah, it was a trip too because I remember I was walking in we were in Ironwood on Sea Yard, and I was walking, and my good boy from Ontario, he goes, hey, fool, the other day when I called you, I said, hey, Lonely. He goes, when you turned around, it was a whole different individual that turned around and looked at me compared to, hey, Brian. And I was like, whoa. So when you're saying Lonely, like you're requesting a different type of individual when you're requesting Brian. And this is a crazy story. This is a dope ass story. So I'm in Ironwood. I'm part of the Youth Offender Mentor Program. It's an honor to be there. Good ass homies who, like me, have transitioned to mentorship. And there's probably like maybe 15 of us, and we're in a building full of probably like 150 youngsters, all hardcore gangbangers doing straight life. Not one of them is over 25. You know, I felt like I was in juvenile hall again. It was the greatest energy because I like fucking with youngsters. The youngsters would come in. You know, I saw this one specific dude. He came in from Longo, and I'm looking at him, and I'm going to go over there and introduce myself. It's my job as a mentor to help this kid get home to his family faster, to get him a GED, to give him some life skills, some relapse prevention. But I'm like, when I walk up, do I say, what's up, homie? My name is Lonely, or do I say Brian? And I'm like, fuck. It's a hard conversion back into Brian because I've been lonely my whole life and I've worked hard for my reputation. So to say Brian, and then I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, damn, I'm having this big internal conflict over meeting this youngster when he's the one that should be scared of me coming up to him, you know?
Yeah.
But ultimately I did come up and you know, introduce myself as Brian and got this kid on the track, and, you know, God willing, he's home now or close to it.
That's crazy. Do you still get like, are you still in contact with people you're locked up with?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the lifers are out now doing great things. Great things. Amazing. I got a friend, actually a lot of friends who are going into the prisons and mentoring, preparing people to go to parole board, helping understand why they did what they did, helping understand their story. Yeah.
So the prison system lets you guys go back in, talk to people?
Yeah, there's organizations that you can go through that, you know, have those relationships, I guess, with the wardens or Sacramento. And we have some amazing advocates that, you know, advocate for us and see the value in us.
I trip out, fool, because you were in there for 29 years and you came out. You've only been out like a year, right? Year and a half?
Yeah, not even. Well, I got out July 15, 2022.
Damn.
Yeah. So
you're coming up on what, 2 years?
Yeah, July 15th will be 2 years.
That's crazy. What is some of the major changes? Because when you went in there, it was probably, what was that? What year was it? 2000 what?
No, I went in 94.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I got
my math wrong.
Yeah. I opened up Salinas in 95.
So like the internet wasn't a thing, smartphone wasn't a thing.
No, I think MySpace came out. I never saw MySpace. Never saw it.
Damn.
That came and went. Mocal Space, was that something? I always heard
that was
about
like that off-brand MySpace.
Oh, okay,
Only
okay.
Mexicans use that one.
Okay, yeah, I always heard the homies talk about Mocal Space. I met a high on Mocal Space.
Yeah, that's what it was
I had
for.
no idea what that was, but I used to just hear them, you know?
Yeah, it was basically like Facebook before Facebook, but only Mexicans would be on it.
Okay,
and usually Moco Space was like, you know, fools from the street.
Okay.
What are some of the biggest changes that just like kind of like took you by surprise and like kind of left you speechless that you noticed the difference between society then and now?
Wow. I mean, I'm still discovering things. Like I'm in a place of discovery in my life. You know, as I was sharing with you earlier, people say like, what's your favorite restaurant? What do you like to eat the most? Like, I'm not sure yet. Like, I'm still exploring. I haven't finished my list yet. You know, I have a list of tons of things that I want to do. But the drugs, you know, I'm a heroin addict. The last time I stuck a needle in my arm was April 10th, 2016. I had 2 years clean before that. I had a homeboy that had got killed. And I don't know what caused me to do that, but I went a couple cells down, you know, I got me a 50 paper and I slammed it. I didn't really get high. It didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I woke in the morning, I felt sick. I wasn't happy. My homeboy was still dead. So, yeah, that was a hard lesson to learn.
So you've been sober since then?
Yeah. And the drugs out here today, so, you know, people say, what's your drug of choice? My drug of choice was more. Whatever would eliminate the pain and numb what I was going through. But what's tripped me out the most is my drug of choice doesn't even exist anymore. You know, I work at one of the biggest treatment centers in Los Angeles. I'm on the front line of addiction. I call them off the streets and I sit them down and I say, welcome. And, you know, I help do their admissions. And when I say, hey, bro, what are you detoxing today? You know, what are you struggling with today? Like, you don't hear heroin and coke and fentanyl and tryptophancine and mexicillin and, you know what I mean? All these crazy designer name drugs. It's
like horse tranquilizers.
Yeah. And then the people come in, they're like twisted and bent over. It's like, it's not natural. When I used drugs, I used to go hide in an alley or close the door. You know, I wouldn't sit on the corner of Laurel Canyon and you know what I mean, in Sheldon and just start twisting a pickle right there in the corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of like professional drug users need a drug dungeon, to do their dirty shit behind closed doors. And nowadays, it's not really like that. You know, like people on the street, like you said, just doing shit.
But at the end of the day, when they sit down, my message to them is the war is over, bro. You lost. You got to surrender.
You start with that sentence?
That's what I start with.
That's
or
powerful.
or in some semblance of that. That's my message. It depends on the person. It's heartbreaking. And I see homies. You can, you know, homie, we recognize each other. We see the tattoos, you know, you see a shield, you see a calendar, you know, the letters. So, you know, it's like, damn. You really, you know, the struggle. You really want them to get it together. But when it's someone like that, it'll be a little bit more tough love.
Yeah.
Man, what the fuck's wrong with you? They need a man in the house. Like, what are you doing out here? Your kid's out here. But then it might be someone who's a little more damaged, you know? I'm gonna deliver my speech the same, but probably with a little softer, maybe a little bit more compassion. My goal is to have these people at their first moment of surrender, their first moment of recovery, to have it to be a good experience. Because my hope is for them to pick themselves up, because they're not bad people trying to get good. They're sick people trying to get well, just like I always was.
Yeah. Do you feel like you don't want to trigger some trauma, and so like you're kind of careful with your words, or like?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I know trauma. Like I've suffered probably every type of trauma imaginable. I've inflicted every type of trauma imaginable. So I don't want to put anything like that else in the world again.
Do you feel like you know, your drug use, your crimes and stuff like that, you've been a really like greedy person, and now it's time to kind of give back and kind of even the score?
100%. It's all been me. Everything was about me. Everything was always about me. I was a selfish son of a bitch. Now, my life is one of service. One of the great lessons that I learned from a great man. He said, anything you need in life, go give it to somebody else. And that's worked for me. It's always worked for me.
That's crazy.
And I thank Raul for that message.
That's powerful. I seen some pictures on your Instagram. You know, everybody can go follow the homie here on Instagram. You work a lot with dogs now, right?
Yeah, dogs are my life. When I did get out of the shoe finally, you know, I'm dealing with the death of my grandmother. I'm getting out the shoe, which is like almost like a whole new release. I felt like I was getting released right there. You know, all of us getting out. It was a trip. Like, you know, every Friday they would run what they called a special committee, and all the homies that were validated, you know, I did my 9 years. That's rinky dink. There's dudes 15, 20, 30 years, strong dudes that just never broke, stayed strong. They were the first ones to get kicked out. But every time we get kicked out, we'd all meet up on the yard and how you guys doing? And, you know, it was a great experience. It felt like getting released. But shortly after, I joined the Positive Change Dog Program. The first dog program on a level 4 general population yard. It ran smooth. It altered the course of my life. It introduced me to my best friend, which is my dog Flynn, my dog Sheldon. And I have the skills. I'm a dog trainer today. Anything to do with dogs, I'm available.
What is it about dogs that you like? Is it like the unconditional love, the way they don't judge? Like, what is it about
So
dogs?
I talked about wanting to belong, wanting to feel a part of something, wanting to get along. When I'm walking a dog, I belong to a pack. I'm the pack leader. I get a level of love that I've looked for in a homeboy my entire life. This dog is ready for whatever at any time. And you know, one of my favorite sayings is dogs know and they don't tell. You know, they're everything to me. A lot of my relationship with dogs, I can't describe in words. It's more like a spiritual experience. It's more like a feeling. It's a connection. Yeah.
Who are some of your clients? It's like, are you dealing with normal people? Like, who do you work with when? Whose dogs do you train?
Yeah, anybody can hit me up and I'll train your dogs. Like in the dog training world, prices are generally pretty high. It's because these are amazing trainers. I feel like I'm a great trainer because I feel like the nature is based off instincts. And coming from my background where I came from, I have to have good instincts. I'm not sitting here today by coincidence. You don't do fucking 30 years in prison. You don't put in all these years on the streets and still be alive by coincidence. I got good instincts. I got the right amount of paranoia, you know. But these instincts transfer over into dogs and relationships. So yeah, I'm fair price. I don't have a set rate. It depends on the person because if a person is struggling, like I've done it for people for free. It's what I love to do. It gives me an opportunity to help and connect with people. And yeah.
Do they have to give you the dog? You take it away like you board it, or do you come and go?
I mean, I could. I can walk. Like a lot of times, people ask me to walk their dogs. I have structured walks that I do. If you need, I can take care of your dog for a day or two. But training, yeah, I will meet up with the person generally. I'll take their dog for maybe an hour with myself. I kind of walk just to get to know them, build a relationship with them. We'll come back to the owner and we'll walk them together. We'll talk about their goals. What are they looking to do with their dog? What are the dynamics they're trying to change in their house with their dog? And we'll get to work on it. I mean, there's a multitude of different ways you can address a problem. And that's what we'll do together.
You ever got bit by one of the dogs you're training?
Yeah, I've been bit a few times, yeah. But it's always my fault. It's never the dog's fault. Dogs, they react to things. You know, they bite if they have to, want to, or need to.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I've been bit. And it's because of me, because I brought anxious energy into their space. I'm dealing with something in my life, and it transfers onto your dog. Because your dogs mirror your energy and who you are. So I always take responsibility, and I never blame the dog.
Do you think the saying, like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, true? Like, or any dog can get trained?
Nah, it's not true. It's not true. I could change the dynamic of your relationship with your dog in a day. People are just, it's like anything in life, you're just missing the information. And in this go fast world, a lot of times people don't have the time to sit there for an hour and do that with their dog. A lot of times they're thinking they're going to hand over their leash. They're going to come back in 2 hours and their dog's just going to be an amazing behavior. It's a journey. It's a process, you know?
Do you feel like people kind of got it fucked up, or like the dog's not trained well because you're not? It's like their fault, right? Because dogs only learn from their owner. They don't go to school or go to college or go to the streets and learn shit.
Yeah,
right. It's usually the owner that made them that way, right?
Well, there's a great trainer named Colleen Steckloff. She has a saying that says, "Train the owner and the dog will follow."
Damn.
That captures
bars.
Yeah, that's bars. it captures everything. So you're training the owner. Like you could sit down with an owner and say, every time he just jumps up on the couch. And as they're saying that, the dog jumps up on the couch and they're petting him and rewarding him for that. And okay. And he's always so anxious and they're fidgeting and their life is anxious. So a lot of it is a little bit of counseling and understanding the person. So your dog trainer is kind of like your barber in your life. Like, you know, you get to know each other, you know, you share information. He's somebody that you kind of welcome into your home. You know, he's always there for your dog. Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit about hip hop because from the moment we met, the second time we met, from the moment we met, we've talked about certain rappers and stuff like that. When you're inside, what were you listening to?
So for my early years, you know, I'm from the 90s, so it was all Death Row, Dog Pound.
West Coast shit.
Yeah, West Coast. I'm a big fan of RJ. I love that G-Unit run. I remember, like, early on, I used to always want to support the homie rappers, like, really, really hard. And I'm not unique in this. I'm speaking for like a vast majority of us, but it was hard to get behind a song when like Try Me was playing or something like that, like oldies, you know?
Yeah, in the background.
Yeah. But there were people that were like spitting bars, like Criminal back then was getting it. But I was basically that. But early hip hop like Nas, Kumo D, like I've always loved East Coast, Big L.
How were you guys listening to music? You guys were passing around CDs and stuff?
Well, when I first came in, it was cassette tapes.
Okay.
I remember borrowing like the Hot Boys, like BG and Juvenile and all that, the tapes. And then finally it moved over to CDs. And it's at CDs now.
Yeah.
It never, well, actually they're on the tablets now.
But like, was there like, out here, like when a new song comes out, we all talk about it. Is this the same in there? Do you guys are all like talking about music in there?
Well, things arrived there really late. They arrived there really late. And as far as, and I'm still sort of, I'm actually in that mind state right now. Like who your rappers that you like and you say, hey, I like, are people that you're kind of invested in their lifestyle as well.
They're like influential in your state of mind.
Yeah, you could connect with them whether it be subscribing to the same codes, whether it be under the same umbrellas or whatever. People look, I definitely for me, but I think that's the case for a lot of people. Like I was sharing, I remember one time I was in Ironwood and I was bumping Bozo. And this dude came up. I'm not gonna say his neighborhood. He was a rival neighborhood of where he's from. And he was like, "Man, turn that shit off. That shit's garbage." I was like, "Come on, homie. Like, there's no denying this shit is bars. Homie's giving you free game. Like check it out." But their mind state is so messed up. So you're missing out on good music because of that. You know what I mean?
Has your taste for music changed since you came out?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really about who the rapper is now, and one of the greatest joyous things in my life has actually meeting like my favorite rappers. Like Hazard, I went to his Vibe Out show. Like as a hip hop fan, this fool's got bars.
Hell yeah.
Bars. He's vicious.
Yeah.
He's vicious. Like when I discovered him, I was like, what the hell? We got us a Kendrick Lamar. Like this fool's vicious. Conejo. I mean, I remember being in Salinas Valley and his homeboy was paroling. He goes, "Hey, check out my homeboy." And he slid me a Conejo tape. That was way back then. It was hard as fuck. He's always been hard. I've had the great opportunity of being around him and meeting him a couple times. And just what you hear, he's a stand-up man. He's a good dude. He was always humble, always generous. And then I've been bumping Bozo a lot lately. Trials and Tribulations. That shit is so hard.
Yeah.
And then he calls it independence. Like, I hope the youth are picking this shit up because this shit is free.
Yeah, because the way he spelled it was END, right?
Yeah, that was hard. I posted it the other day. I underlined it. Like, I'm hoping people see that because what I'm all about is ownership. Like, I've had opportunities of people saying, "Hey, this," but I want to own my I didn't survive all I survived just to like be up under somebody. Like we can collab and stuff like that, but
right.
Yeah, I'm not going to hitch my wagon to your truck, which is really tempting because I'm 46 at this point. To build your life from ground up at 46 years is hard.
Yeah, it must be.
I mean, I look at people like, damn, dude's been grinding for like 20 years. Like I see like all my friends are established. They have homes, they have cars. Like, I'm not even 2 years old yet.
Yeah. What are some of the things you're looking forward to that you're building on that you want? Any goals?
My ultimate goal is a legacy. I don't want to be known as that guy, that terrible story, like a good kid that lost his way and went to jail for murder at 16 and got out and, kind of just did a 9 to 5 and we don't know what happened to him. My story, I believe, the pro board says, how do you make it psychologically okay for you to live with the fact that you're responsible for a human being's death? And I had already thought about that for years. I remember thinking, I'm so glad he asked me that. It's never going to be okay for me. The only way that I'm able to survive is just to keep giving back and helping and trying to be as loud and as bright and do as much good as I possibly can. Because like I said, it's not a coincidence that I'm here. God didn't take me through all this. Like I've been stabbed in prison during riots. I've been shot in prison from towers. I've been shot on the streets. I've been stabbed on the streets. I got a hole in my throat, from a 40 bottle. You don't survive that for no reason. I'm at a place in my life where I'm able to realize that and I'm able to be grateful. But it's hard, bro. It's tough, man. I mean, I've been telling myself lately, I always post these moments where like I'm doing good. And it's not really true because there's some really hard times. So I told myself lately, because there's a lot of people that support me that since I've been out, they keep me going. I get amazing DMs from people that they just keep me lifted. But I'm going to start being a little bit more honest. Like if I have a really terrible day and something happens, like, you know, I'm going to be let it known like what it is.
Yeah. Okay. You have any kids?
I don't. I got 3 nephews though.
Okay, so check this out. So you came from pretty much like your parents were really loving and stuff like that. If you had your kids and you wanted them to avoid the trouble that you got into as a parent, what are some of the things that you think you needed or you would do so your kids don't end up in the things that you find negatively that affected you? What would you do as a parent?
Well, I think for me, there was no getting through to me. I mean, I even learned statistics later on when I was in prison that the majority of gang members don't commit murder. It's a very small portion of people that actually commit murder. Like if you look at the neighborhoods, you know, the GTAs, you know, there's the robberies, you know, there's all the general dope fiend shit, you know, and then there's like the ones that step up and, you know, do big things. But not too many like go away for murder and do those time. But my message is not one, I never preach to anybody. I just give it raw. There's no other way. I give them information because that's what I always want. So if you go to jail, here's what it is. Yeah, you're going to have fun. There's good times on the yard. You're going to meet good people. But 90% of it is going to be rough. It's going to be painful. You're going to be alone. You're going to be away from your family. And then the same with the drugs. Yeah, they're going to work for a little while, but then they're going to turn on you and they're going to wear off. So choose your path. But if you do stay in the game, like my boy Jude from Montero used to always say, don't be a punk. Ride that shit out. Be a man. Don't PC up. That was always his message. We used to always bust up. We would have the youth offender meetings. We're like, Jude's crazy, you know? But yeah, I tend to always keep it real. I try to be as blunt and real as it is because I made a decision that took me 2 seconds and that decision cost me 30 years of my life.
Damn.
So play with it if you want. You're going to go out to get gas with your homies one night. You pull over, you go to push the gas in, boom, it's over. That's how quick it happens. I lost a dog the other night, man. I'm in the front yard. And I'm with the dog. The dog that I trained in prison, actually, both of the dogs are with me now. My mom adopted them. So one of the 2 dogs I was out there in the front yard with, and one of our other little family dogs, you know, shout out to Madison, you know, this amazing, beautiful little girl that lost her dog. You know, when I was out there, the dog ran out and he never runs into the street. And for some reason, he just darted out in the street at the moment that this truck was coming. I seen the whole thing go down, bro. Damn. It was the most brutal, like, you know, I was telling my mom the other day, like, you know, I've seen a lot of men like die right there in front of me, but to watch a dog that you love get run over, like that's a whole new level of just grief that, wow. But, you know, ultimately, you know, it impacted my 2 dogs. Like I see my other dog Flynn this morning and you could see him, like it's impacting him.
Like they remember, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Flynn was right there when it happened. He ran up. I jumped on top of the dog to cover him because I thought it was going to be blood and stuff. Everybody, I looked down, not a drop of blood.
It just got hit in the head.
Yeah.
Damn, dog.
And it was brutal, man. It was tough. I mean, it literally happened. We're like on day 6 right now. Yeah, it's been tough on the whole family, man.
Do you have like survivor's remorse when you think about your homies and you're out here doing something cool?
I do. What
are some situations where like you're doing something cool and you're like, damn, the homies though?
Always.
Give me some examples.
Just the other day, when I was with Mohawk, we were getting out of the car to go to that Vibe Out, a party for Hazard. And I remember we were close to Lincoln Heights. I remember thinking, damn, I wish Marlo was here with me right now. He deserves it. You know, he's a good, like, he's just like me. Like, he'll put good into the world. He's focused and he's ready. But he just got to wait his turn. They used to always say that. The first time I went to board, they denied me 7 years.
What does that mean? That means you can't get another parole until 7 years.
Yeah. And at that point, I had already been down like 19. So I was like, damn, something like that. I mean, I wasn't ready to go home at that time. Thank God they didn't let me go home at that time. But yeah, all the time. I got so many friends in there with life without parole, 150 years to life. Dudes that have caught life in there, death row. My whole life, dudes I was raised with since we were 18. We grew up like 50-year-old men with gray hair. We were little bald-headed kids at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think about him. I talk to him as much as possible. But yeah, they're always with me.
How was adjusting to the food out here?
It still jacks me up. Yeah, it's still all crazy. I made the horrible mistake of thinking like energy drinks, drinking like 4 a day would just be okay for my 45-year-old brain. Like I came out here knocking down bangs. I was all those things. Like I would wake up with a bang and like a chocolate custard donut. And then I began getting these headaches so bad. So yeah, I'm probably like 8 months clean off energy drinks. You know what I mean? But the food, yeah, it's tough on my stomach. It is really tough. A lot of things, my energy level, I see these grind. I see these dudes like, you know, that I see them, whether it be cameramen, photographers, you know, Mohawk, Shooter Rick, Bozo, Cornell, like grinding, hustling. And I try to keep up, but my energy level, just because you spend 30 years damn near sitting down, you're not conditioned, you know? So I start tiring out and I go hard on myself like, come on, boy, you got to get up and get it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a really frustrating thing. And plus, I'm not a young kid anymore, you know? Mm-hmm. Despite what my brain tells me, my body, you know, goes on strike.
What's your favorite thing to eat now?
I love crab legs. I just don't like all the drama of having to take everything apart.
That's why I don't like them.
Yeah, like, you know, yeah. I love me a good steak. In and out. Even though I'm trying to, you know. Oh, Hoggly Wogglies in the Valley.
What's that?
Oh, bro. Anybody listening on Sepulveda Boulevard, Hoggly Wogglies, it's legendary. It's been there for years. The waitress that works there has been the waitress for like something like 37 years.
Oh, shit.
Like bomb-ass barbecue food, like all kind of stuff. But, I mean, I'm at a stage in my life where like everything gets me excited. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's probably annoying to some people, but I'm pretty much, you know, on level 10 excited.
I want to talk a little bit about, do you fools watch YouTube in there?
Allegedly.
Okay, maybe
there's a shout.
So I want to talk a little bit about the parole process, just in case there's somebody in there that wants to, you know, maybe they can learn something a little bit. Tell me why you mentioned that one of your parole hearings was really quick, one took long. What did you learn from the process, and what do people have to look forward to? And do you agree with the process? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is if you're going to the parole board, your loved one is going to the parole board, and you need some assistance, contact me.
Okay.
I have mastered that shit.
Good.
Literally.
Good.
I was taught by some of the greatest, Kiefer Dachel, Dominique Tanks, Oscar Mejia, like great people with deep insights, convicts, good dudes. You know, we'd run class and write curriculum. Like when we zeroed in on the point where we says, you know, I'm tired of losing and being in prison and being excited over like a punk ass soup and an ice cream and being content. You know, forget all that. When we zeroed in on the fact that we're going to get home, like we went in, we had a cold team of people. There was like 20 dudes on that yard, good dudes. And we zeroed in, just devoured information. So the first time I went, I was denied 7 years. The second time I went, my hearing took under an hour. The commissioner came back and said that was probably one of the easiest decisions I've ever made.
Why do you think that is?
Because I left no open doors. I examined myself, every aspect of myself. As hard and brutal as it was the hardest thing in the world. I've done what the gang world calls the hardest things in the world. You know, I committed a murder. I did a life sentence standing up, went home with my chin up. To look at yourself, to turn around and look at yourself and actually examine yourself, that's hard, but you got to put in that work because they're going to ask you really, really difficult questions. They want to know the why behind the why.
Like, for example, what's some of the questions they'll ask you?
So, why'd you join a gang? Oh, I grew up in it. It was in my family, and, you know, I didn't really have much choice. That's a denial. Immediately, I joined a gang because I wanted acceptance. I wanted love, and I used to see it in the movies, and the movies were like advertisements to me. So I took those advertisements to the real thing and I joined and I got filled up with that. And by the time I realized it was the wrong thing, I was already too far in. It was too late.
That's a better answer.
Yeah. You got to have.
So it's almost like stop blaming the people and they'll stop denying what you did. Like you have to admit that what you did was wrong, basically.
And they always say, what level of responsibility does your victim have? Zero. Immediately say the answer, zero. I don't care if he was the same person as you and a gang member, a shooter, a gunner, whatever. When you're coming down to like expressing remorse, that doesn't deserve, you know, in front of the board, zero. He has zero responsibility. It was all me. I made the decision. It was a multitude of decisions. I made the decision to join the gang, to run around every night, to go out past my curfew, to get high, to hold guns, to shoot guns, to carry guns. All those decisions combined led to this man's death.
When you start rehearsing and practicing those things that you're supposed to say, do you start believing them? Like, you know what? Even though like I'm getting coached to say this, like this is actually true.
Yeah, so I have a great deal of like self-understanding. Like I've always been a really introspective person. Like I can understand things and I can translate them in my mind really well. I understood that because there was one point like where I was getting prepared for board for like 5 years. I was just in my shit, dealing with the worst decisions I ever made in my life. And it was really affecting my spirit. And you go to the board, we say fall on the sword. You got to talk about yourself in the worst ways. Like my boy always said, when you walk in that pro board, don't defend Lonely. Throw his ass under the bus. Sit there as Brian and throw Lonely under the bus.
Damn.
That was a good advice right there. But yeah, I started like really believing like, damn, you're a terrible human being. Like you don't deserve any, like it's crazy because you repeat these things for years over and over to where I was able to separate what I needed to do for board compared to my real like psychological being able to carry on and sleep at night. So yeah, I was able to do that, but that's a hard thing to navigate right there.
Do you feel like the process is fair? The people are fair? The parole
At
board?
this point, yeah. At this point, it's fair. I don't know how long it's going to stay that way. You do got to put in work. It's not a cakewalk, but you do got to put in work. But when I went, yeah, it was fair. I've seen some people get some unfair shakes, but generally, yeah, it was fair.
Do you feel like society has changed their outlook on felons? Like before, you know, if you're a convicted felon, man, that word carried so much weight in a negative tone. Do you feel like society has looked like differently, and what has changed, do you think?
I used to come home, you know, fresh out of jail. Worship came from the hood. You know, externally, anything outside of that, I was just a pariah. Like, yeah, you terrible.
Bad hombre.
Yeah, you're a bad hombre. You're a gang member, scumbag. So now I come out of jail to like almost like a hero. Like people say, congratulations. I'm thinking, congratulations for what? Getting out of prison?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I felt a lot of guilt for a while behind that. But yeah, people see, here's the thing, like, because these guys coming out of prison, like they're the ones that are going to change the world. It's crazy because who in this world has been confined to a box and spent the last 10 years like I did, your only job was get to know every single aspect of yourself. You read hundreds of books, read hundreds of curriculum, fill up hundreds of composition books to discover yourself and get loose in the world. So I came out here with mad life skills. It's just to execute on them. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect because they get tested. I do have a line. Lonely's not dead. He's still very much there, you know? And I pray to God that day never comes where like I get pushed past that point where the snap comes and I fuck up in front of the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you feel like there's a way of doing that on the outside? Like you don't have to wait till you're in prison and locked away for 29 years to find yourself or to work on yourself. Do you feel like there's ways people can do that out here?
Yeah. Look at your examples. When I sat in the visit room in prison, the biggest absence in the visit room was a father. Very rare did you see a dad. So, and that's the common denominator. That's not ironic right there. You know, people are going and looking for that stuff. They're looking for role models. Look to the right ones. Like, you know, we talked about the independence. Like, look what this dude's doing right here. You know, check out what these guys are doing. All these different people on YouTube. Like, there's a lot of really good role models. There's some people that I sit back and I really admire these dudes, what they're doing.
Who are some people that you recommend people follow or listen to?
I mean, I'm always going to say my favorites, you know, Conejo, Hazard, you know, Bozo, Young Uno from Coima. That dude got bars too. He's hard. I listened to RJ. I've been bumping RJ a lot lately. I had to throw back with Lloyd Banks like the last week. You know, I spent like a week on Banks on Hunger for More.
Hell yeah. Classic.
Yeah. I'm gonna let Conejo just drop the reset like an additional part. I've been kind of on that for the last couple of days. But yeah, if it's hard, you know, and like I said, I'm playing catch up. I'm so far behind. I'll discover a new song and then I'll look 5 years ago, like, damn, like, you know what I mean? Like, but, you know, it is what it is.
For me, dog, I feel like, you know, I always had a good example of my dad was a good, solid dad. But for some reason, you know, I just didn't want to listen to him at that time, right? When he was trying to tell me what to do, right? And I always fell in love with, like, you know, gangster movies and gangster music. Nowadays, it's tough for me to listen to some real super gangster violent shit because I know that whatever I listen to or let inside my fucking ears, it can actually subconsciously affect me. So do you have that problem listening to gangster music now? Do you try to stay away from it, or it doesn't really affect you when you listen to some gangster shit or watch a gangster movie?
No, yeah, for the most part it doesn't. But like I've caught myself a few times, like bumping some Mozzie, you bumping some Grinch mode or something, start feeling a little bit froggy or something like that. And I'm like I said, I'm very conscious and self aware. So I'm like, let me dial this back and throw on some Anita Baker or something for like an hour. Then I'll reboot for a second.
Yeah.
But for the most part, no, not really.
Have you found yourself on the brink of snapping since you've been out?
Yeah, I've been pulled a lot closer to that line than I could ever hope for.
And what do you do to kind of push yourself away from the line?
I breathe. I remember, a great mentor of mine saying breathing is giving oxygen to the brain. If there's no oxygen going to the brain, what kind of decision are you going to make, And I remember like, I'm out here with, I'm representing the people that we talked about earlier that are still behind those doors right there. If I fuck up, I could reverse a law, and I'm going to go back in there and they're going to want to kill me. And I'm going to walk onto that yard and get killed, because I deserve it. Yeah. So I feel that responsibility. I have nephews that observe and listen and hang on every word I say. I have a girlfriend and her daughter who I feel a great deal of responsibility for. So it's not just me. That was one of the things that were so selfish. I'm been arrested for murder. I'm built for this. I can handle it. I took a trial. I took it on the chin. I'm built for this. But my family's not. The people that I'm dragging behind me the whole time. When they said guilty, my mom let out the most horrific noise that's still in my left ear. I don't think it will ever go because it's been a long time. So yeah.
Yeah, it must have sucked for her to hear that shit.
Yeah, there is the opportunity to change out here. Like, listen, like learn. What's that quote? Like, a smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from another mistake. I know it's corny. It's been repeated a million times, but there's value in that quote right there. There's a ton of role models. But I think kids nowadays aren't like built like we were in the 90s, where it's like you get busted for like a life sentence. You take it on the chin. You keep your mouth shut. Like, people are not willing to do that time. They're not willing to face that consequence. So. When you're seeing all that on YouTube, it's not really happening in real life. I don't think so.
Yeah. You're wearing a Nipsey Hussle hat. Victory lap. I have the Nipsey penny that the homie. Shout out to Aztec Soul who drew that for me. I always say this and people hate it when I say it, but I wasn't really the biggest fan of Nipsey Hussle's early music. I do love the marathon, the Victory lap. Mm-hmm. Sorry. But I was a huge fan of his fucking interviews. That fool go on crazy podcasts and always drop hella game, dog. And I feel like he said it too, like he likes to steal information from people or steal like advice. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes he'll like say us two will be talking to each other, like you're giving me game, but he'll be watching it and steal the game that was meant for you, and he'll take it with and run with it.
Yeah, me too.
Do you listen to Nipsey a lot?
All the time. I listen to 50 Cent interviews. I don't think in the last 6 months I've gone a day without listening to one of them.
Damn.
I don't know why.
What are some of the games that you learn, or like what do you like about it?
Ownership. I love the fact that he said when I got my first check from M and Dre, I didn't go buy a chain. I didn't get something you can park in my parking lot. I bought the access to the G Unit logo on both continents. When it came time for him to brand his shoes, he didn't do the Jay-Z route and put them on the basketball court. He put them on his team's feet. I mean, he ultimately ended up taking them away because I remember he called that meeting and they were all wearing Louis Vuittons, and he said that G Unit check ain't coming no more. Like, yeah. He's just really focused. Like, he's got a good sense of self. He's got tons of quotes and jewels that I pick up on. Him a lot. I'm looking at tons of interviews. The last one I watched was your Spanky Local one. Oh, sure. Yeah, that one was hard.
Appreciate it. Hard. You also I've noticed that you always also make yourself available. Like, you're at different events, you go out there a lot. Why do you feel that's important for you to show face?
So when I got out, another thing with 50 Cent, like I always say, like Tony Yayo came out just to a great welcome. Mohawk has done that for me. He's been out here putting in work, doing his thing for a lot of years. So when I came out, he was there, on day one, he brought me tons of clothes, you know, gave me some money, and he's been picking me up and taking me out. So like, I've gotten to a place in life where it would have took me a lot of work to get there, where he's put me right there. And I'm really appreciative. In terms of these events, like Hood Raised, Servants, like I'm meeting some of the greatest people. Like I've always wanted that. I've always wanted to belong to a movement that, you know, is pushing good agendas and good things. And I've been to recently 2 events. That Hood Raised Christmas event, that was so amazing. Those people are doing such great things. It was laughter, you know. I love that stuff. That's what I came out here to do.
Yeah.
My dream is to one day have my own event.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Man, dog, that was. I want to say thank you for pulling up to the Lit Out podcast, my boy, and sharing your story. That's a dope ass story. I really appreciate it, man. Let the people know where they can find you and what you got going on next.
Yeah, so I'm at Free Bliss, FreeBliss1. Right now, it's all about the dogs for me. I'm also open to help anybody if their people are in jail and they're looking for a way out. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch, but you know, 30 years, I think, affords me some degree of experience. I've experienced every part of the penal system from the juvenile to the adult. And I'm here to assist in that. But right now, dogs is just my passion, my focus. And I'm here for that. Just hit me up.
Appreciate it, man. If you guys are still watching, make sure you guys click on the like button, share, subscribe, send this to all your homies. And I want to thank everyone who's been watching our interviews lately. We've been getting a lot of support lately from great people like Mohawk Mac, your homie, and that's how we got connected, right? So if you guys are still watching, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. And every time the video shows up on your feed, even though if you're going to want to watch it later, just click on it, leave it for 5 minutes, and then come back and rewatch the whole thing. Because every time you skip away from a reel or a video, it kind of tells our algorithm that nobody wants to watch it. So make sure as soon as you guys see this, click on it. And then if you have to come back and restart it over, that's also something you should do. But again, dog, thank you so much for pulling up.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you. And wish you the best of luck. I think you got your head on straight, so I think you'll be just fine. That's it. See you guys later. Pull up, turn up, stay lit. Let's get it.